Glad to see you here. Thank you for coming to the monthly Men's Luncheon here at Monticello Baptist Church. First of all, we want to welcome our guest. And we do have guests from in the county and other churches. Great to see you. We have some grandsons back here for Danny. So welcome, guys. It's just good to be here today. One housekeeping matter. This Thursday, we're going to take a knife-making trip. No, we're going to take a trip to a knife maker down at Smithdale. The same trip we made back in April to my brother's knife-making shop. There's a sign-up sheet over here. And so, guys, we're going. I'll have a great time. We'll eat at the Golden Corral if they have any food there when it's over with. And we invite you to go and invite men to come. We'll be taking the church bus. But you can go in your own vehicle, etc. So that's this Thursday. We'll leave out here at 9 o'clock. So we'll have a great time. And my brother is quite a professional knife maker. Those of you who went the first time, many men said couldn't go that day, but maybe you can go this Thursday. So that's the one housekeeping matter that we want to share with you. We'll close with a word of prayer. We'll hold those prayer requests to the end. It's my joy today to introduce to you a dear friend of mine, a young man who grew up in Madison, and then when he was in the 7th grade, 8th grade, he moved to Warren County, went to Warren Junior High, graduated from Warren Central, went on to Hines and Delta State. He was one of the best punters for several years in high school football, punted for Hines, and then for Delta State. Had a tryout with the Atlanta Falcons, as a lot of kids do that have played college ball, didn't make it, but that's fine. Went into high school coaching, North Sunflower, Tallulah Academy, Porter's Chapel. I was at the game where his Tallulah team beat Porter's Chapel, and they were so mad at him they hired him the next year. And he came back home to Vicksburg. 13 years ago, Madison Regional Academy in Madison hired him as assistant football coach, head junior high coach, and head track coach. And in the last 8 years, his track teams have won 6 MAIS titles, can compete with anybody. The football team is also a juggernaut. No matter who they play, public school, private school, doesn't matter. You'll know his head coach, Herbert Davis, from here in Monticello, and is married to the queen of Rolling Fork, his wife Kristen, who is an RN. They have 2 children, and I could go on and on about this young man. But the most important thing is that he is a brother in Christ. Amen. And some men in First Baptist, and I guess other places, witnessed to him, loved him to the Lord, and it was my joy to baptize him a number of years ago. And then it was my joy to perform his wedding ceremony. And I remember the day that he came to my office and said, we're leaving Vicksburg. I've accepted this job at Madison Regional Academy. And he's the spiritual leader of that school. Though he's the assistant athletic director and all those duties, he will not be coaching football this fall. But Justin, he's your track guy to turn to. One of Justin's responsibilities will be track at Brookhaven Academy. There's somebody's brain you can pick. So a guy that's committed to his church, the Broadmoor Baptist Church in Madison, and my daughter and her husband are in your life group. They're all in the life group, and she always says, Daddy, you need to get John down to Monticello to share his testimony. Well, John Weaver is here today. So would you join me in welcoming John Weaver to speak today?
Thank y'all so much. I was getting teary-eyed over there when you were saying those things. I remember it was September 14th, 2008 is when I was baptized. And one of those things that when I go through life and I start thinking about where I started as a Christian before just doing church and then knowing who the Lord is, it speaks volumes to what I was for the first 28 years of my life. Like I said, September 14th, 2008 goes way before then. So I'm going to take you in the Wayback Time Machine of me for about a minute and a half to 2 minutes and let you know that I played church league softball for St. Michael's Catholic Church. And St. Michael's Catholic Church had a potluck. I thought it was just Catholic guys that played together. I grew up Catholic, all that stuff. I was always one that competed at a very high level, whatever I did. If it was throwing rocks, skipping rocks on the lake, if it was throwing marbles, whatever. And I'd always slide into second base. If you ever played church league softball, you know you don't slide anywhere in rec league ballparks. Well, I go in, I slide, and I tear up my ankle, my knee. I got all these bricks all in my side, right? All in my calf. And I'm letting out profanities left and right. It's church league softball. A buddy of mine comes up, Jerry Bourne, who I'm very good friends with, comes up, he's like, man, just chill out a little bit. And I was like, it's fine. Fast forward to him starting to minister to me. I had told my then girlfriend at the time, then fiance, then my wife, Kristen, I was like, I don't know if I want to go to St. Michael's for church. She's like, what do you mean? I was like, I want to go somewhere else. She goes, where do you want to go? And I said, like any Baptist. Like, what up, First Baptist? She's like, what? I was like, First Baptist. She was where? I was like, Vicksburg. So we went. I see Jerry Bourne there. We walk in. I sit right to the left, middle row. And I was like, Jerry's here. So I'm thinking Jerry's Catholic this whole time. And Jerry's definitely not Catholic. And sat down and listened to an Easter sermon performed by Brother Matt. And he started talking about football. And then put two and two together that I knew Doug. And then it started the trend and how God works in the ways that he wants to. God used the vehicle of football to get me to First Baptist that day, to make a change in my life, to start following in the right path. Because I didn't know. I went to church because I went to church. I did church because that's what we were supposed to do. I got up because my parents said, go to church. We got to go to church, not wanting to go to church, not wanting to serve the Lord, not doing those things. So that has put me on a trajectory of the days that we have in this life, maximize each day. So here, you got a phone, right? Everybody's got a phone? Real quick. Can you do me a favor, and can you write this in your phone, your notes, real quick? What is one thing you would do if you knew that you could not fail? And you can think, you don't have to write down. I'm just big on, normally I'll have an envelope and that, and you'll put it in. That's my fault. I didn't come prepared for that. But it's just been put on my heart, listening to meeting new people. What is one thing you would do if you knew that you could not fail? So I go into my story, and I go into who I want to be, who God has for me, because I talked to Brother Matt on the way down here. I was like, man, don't we all just want this divine moment of like, go speak to me audibly, let me go here, let me do this, and I know what you want for my life. Like, that's the thing that we want, right? So whenever I talk to groups, and I spoke to a group about 900 in Arkansas about a year and a half ago, coaches and all that. And my biggest thing was I used to be a ring chaser. So Brother Matt was mentioning that we had won all these state championships. I got to MRA in 2013 or 2011. They haven't won a state championship ever. The school started in 1969. And here I am like, wait, what are we doing? Like, okay, you have this goal of wanting to win a state championship. So I've turned myself into, instead of a ring chaser, a relationship builder. And those young men in the back, I let them have all those rings. I don't ever wear them because all that means is memories for me of the teams that have come before me, and we've coached and all that stuff. So what does that mean? I firmly believe when you're a relationship builder that you maximize people, that we were put on this earth to maximize people. So what does that mean? When I go to maximize, and I told somebody in here, and I told Justin, I don't have goals. People are like, you don't have goals? Like, I don't. I don't have goals that I can't control, because outside influences have a factor in those goals. My goal for each day is to maximize each day for God's kingdom. That's all we're promised. That's all we're promised. So go back to my 28-year-old self. understanding what it means to be a Christian and what that's going to look like and how am I supposed to live different. I told you the divine thing, right? I want God to audibly speak to me. Like, I want you to tell me where you want me to go and all that stuff. Right? I want the easy button. Remember that red easy button? I just want the easy button. Push it, and you tell me. Well, it came into these 4 things, and it's a quadrant that I live by, and it's the 4 letters that I live by in my life, and it's HTHL. And it stands for high truth, high love. And if you think about this, there's a quadrant. I'm not good at geometry or graphs or all that stuff, but I'm pretty simple with this. But in the top right is high truth, high love. Then you have high truth, low love. Bottom left is low truth, low love, and then you have low truth, high love. Well, being a Christian is speaking high truth out of high love to people. And I think that's how you maximize people. A lot of times people ask you, how do you feel? And what do you say? Good. Fine. I think getting in the weeds with people and understanding that not every day is a good day. Not every day is a hard day. For me, I don't have bad days. They're just hard days. So this is where it's come into how I live, what I do, and I'm going to share that with you. Garen Stokes is a good friend of mine, coaches high school football, and he has this out, and he and I had conversed. I want to share this with you because it is super powerful, and it's not just for a coach's life. It's if you're 10 years old, if you're 45 years old, if you're 65 years old, if you're 85 years old. It does not matter. But I'm going to say these real fast, and I'll break all these down. But you own it, live it, create it, see it, say it, change it, honor, punish it, repeat it, evaluate it all with how you live your life. I think the greatest goal for me as a coach to go, and I missed practice this morning, and it hurt my heart. I told Herbert, I was like, I got to go speak. He goes, where? I said, Monticello. He goes, I know where that is. But having that platform of my receivers, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I coach and why I coach and all that stuff, and I'm going to break all this down for you. But when you start looking at owning it and living it and creating it, I had to own who I was as a person. I had to own up that I am not up to what everybody else says. I'm up to God's standards. And that's the standard that I live by. That wasn't like that for 28 years. I'm 42. Wasn't that long ago. When I came to Brother Matt, and I was like, I don't want the life that I had. And I remember sitting with him at El Sombrero talking about what a Christian life looks like and how I wanted that because people look different to me. They look different. I used to go to SOS, the Service Over Self, in the summers. I went to Wednesday night with some of my buddies, and I was like, man, y'all eat, and y'all talk about the Lord a lot. What do you do? And I was like, I try to skip out on Sunday school. That's what I tried to do when I was 10, 11, 12, 13. Because that's not a place I wanted to be. So fast forward that, when I start looking at owning it, you got to come to grips with your number one job on this earth is to be a witness for Him. And I'm about to start crying about this. When I started realizing that, it started changing. Like the aha moment that you wanted. Yes, He speaks audibly if you listen to Him. And I think that's the hardest part is we're all set in our ways. We're all set in what we want to do, and we're going to own our life for as long as it is. Just like I asked you to remember what you said. What's one thing you can do if you knew you couldn't fail? And you said it, sir. You witness. You witness. You lead people. That's our job on this earth, is to create disciples. So in that, fast forward me to God putting me, I was on a trajectory in Birmingham. I lived in Athens, Georgia. I lived in New York, which I'll never go back. Too many people. Sitting on Fifth Avenue, looking down, I was like, I feel really insignificant. To where my grandfather got Parkinson's disease and went through that. And I was like, you know what? I was driving a truck with Channel Petroleum down to Lexworth. And I was driving back and I cried, because this was not what, I was like, God, this is not it. This is not it. So I go to Porter's Chapel Academy as a librarian. You talk about owning it. owning as a librarian, right, and serving for the Lord. So a lot of times when you start looking at the path and whatever you're doing, so I go to Porter's Chapel, I'm the assistant DB coach, I'm this, and I start thinking about rings. Remember I told you ring to relationship builder. So the rings were my main thing. I remember the head coach at that time the trophy had to be delivered to the school that was hosting the North State Championship. He walks out in the middle of the field, holds the trophy up. I looked down and I was like, what is he doing? Like, does he know that is bad karma? And sure enough, we lost. But it was all about the rings. And coaches that I was in the path of, they were like, we got to win the ring. We got to win the state championship. Well, only one team wins the state championship at the end of every year. So I was like, how do I make an impact? Well, as a Christian, what an awesome platform for the sport of football to be a vehicle to minister to young people and how impressionable they are, to where I was supposed to be the OC, and I was OC for 3 years under Coach Davis. Fast forward to my time at MRA, to where I go and we get a new coach. Before that, I'm the junior high coach. I come back up. I've been the wide receiver coach since 2018. But man, one of our receivers who's going to Navy, it's his birthday today. And I text him, I was like, man, hey, happy birthday to you. So proud of you and so proud for you. Go change the world one day at a time. And having them text back, you get a 17-year-old to text you back. That's powerful. And that's the owning it part, the living it part for me. When you live it, you set the example for everything that you are. When you live it, you set the example. The old saying is you get one time to make a good first impression. That's it. A lot of times when we live it, what does that look like? What do we look like to the lives of others? What do we look like? I'm here to tell you it doesn't matter. It's what do you look like to the eyes of the Lord? How are you portraying him? What are people seeing in you that I saw when I was younger? How do people see you different? When I saw people that were different, they acted different, they talked different, they walked different, their life looked different. Why? Because they lived it. They owned it. And that's changed my whole trajectory. They own it. They live it. They create it. This is the thing that gets me, and a lot of coaches say this is a cliche little hashtag. Everything matters. Everything matters. From the time you wake up in the morning to the time you lay your head down at night, have you served the Lord? And that's something I ask myself, because, look, I can bring the juice, bring the energy more than anybody on our staff. You can ask Herbert that yourself. I'm cranking it out. I got 12,000 steps before I step off the field at 9:30 in the morning. But if I'm doing it for the wrong reasons, why am I doing it? And that whole plan has changed with me going forward as a coach and now as an administrator, whether it's football, whether it's track, whether it's leading an athletic department. And I talked to Brother Matt this morning. My biggest thing is how am I doing it with my kids? My two youngins at home, Emery and Luke, what do they see? Do they see ball coach daddy? Or they see the ball coach daddy as the same daddy? Right? Because it doesn't change. A lot of times I'd heard when I was younger, like, oh, it's just my roots coming out from me being on the ball field. That shouldn't matter. That shouldn't matter. Of what we do on the field, it shouldn't matter. It should be the exact same. Not saying I'm perfect by any stretch. I'm not. And I fail miserably every day. The next thing is see it. See it. See it as it is. See it better than it is. How do you see life? So we have live it, create it, see it. Live it, create it, see it. How do you see your world? When you wake up in the morning, the God blesses you with a fresh, people say 24. 24 starts at midnight when we're still sleeping. So you got like 18 or 16, whatever that is, a fresh 16. How do you see that? What eyes do you see it through? A lot of people see pain. A lot of people, I'm telling you, I'm trying to stay off this thing. You ever notice the apple in the back? You ever notice that on an Apple phone? And what's taking a bite out of? I promise you, I think it's part of being the devil. But you see it. You see it. You got to be personal with it. The biggest thing I've learned in my 19-year coaching journey, if it needs to be said, say it. The whole world's trying to be politically correct, right? If you need to say it, say it. If somebody is starving and craving God's word and you know that they need to hear it, say it to them. Say it. A lot of times we're like, let moments pass you by. So I'll tell you about, I run a podcast called The Culture Classroom for the last 5 years. I met my podcast co-host for the first time a week ago in person. We can do Zoom and all that stuff, which brought me back to COVID years, and my goodness, that's a whole nother ball of wax. But we met in person. You know what he tells me? He said it all the time on a Zoom. He's like, I'm not a real religious person. I was like, what does religion have to do with it? Are you a Christian? He's like, I'm just not a real religious person. I said, do you believe in God? He says, I do. I said, then why do you say you're not religious? Because I don't go to church. So you're talking about say it, right? I had him for a captive audience for 3 straight days and got to witness to him. If I was scared to say it, that would have never happened. I could have been like, this could ruin our friendship. This could ruin our podcast for the last 5 years of us talking about culture. But I had him face to face, and there's something powerful about looking somebody face to face and saying what needs to be said. That goes back to the high truth, high love. No matter how bad it hurts him. And look, if it convicts him, then God's working through me to get to him. So say it. The hard things need to be said. Next is change it. We all need to improve, right? We all need to improve. I needed to improve from September 14, 2008 to this morning when I woke up. Every day needs to improve and get better. So how do I do that? I'm in God's Word. I follow people. I read more now than I used to. But the one thing I can't seem to put down, and I have it here, is God's Word. So we did a book study in the book of Romans. And our pastor, Josh Brady, did it for 30 weeks in the book of Romans. Well, I outlined every day he was there. It's all outlined. Because I can't put it down. So I think when you start looking at things and you start looking at things that need to be changed, we start evaluating ourselves first. Because I view ourselves as 20 square feet. And I got to own my 20 square feet before I go step into somebody else's 20 square feet. That's one of those things that I can't go mess with Justin's mess if I ain't got my mess figured out. Y'all agree with that? You got to own your 20 square feet. Honor, punish it. Here's the thing with honor, punish it. I think we got to celebrate our successes. So many times we're negative on ourselves, to where we don't celebrate the successes of others. I tell my receivers all the time, I'm not going to get on to you for not knowing a route or whatever. I tell them, because I can't, for lining up, I tell them a line for success. So if they think a lining for success is 1 yard outside the hash mark, and I think it's 1 yard inside the hash mark, I've told them a line for success, and they score a touchdown, so be it. We scored a touchdown. But aligning for success, and when we start looking at things about honoring it, being specific with ourselves of what are some things we did today that were pleasing? What are some things that I've helped somebody? Or what are some things that I need to work on myself that I've gotten better today? The punish it part is, it goes with how many times we get down on ourselves. Because I read this morning that the same part of the brain that deals with anxiety is the same part of the brain that deals with success. So those two things can't coexist. So when I'm in the Lord's Word, when I'm in His walk, holy cow, like that anxiety is not there. Versus when there is anxiety, it's absent. God is absent. He is not there. I told somebody probably about 2 weeks ago, and they're like, how do you let go of that stuff? I said, it's easy. Just add a D. They go, what? I was like, let God. Let go of whatever's struggling. Let God take a work in your life. And that sounds simple. It's just like the word intentional. It's the easiest word to roll off the tongue, but it's the hardest thing to do. When you tell somebody you're going to be intentional, because now what has that done to you? You put pressure on yourself that you got to stick this out. If I'm going to send him stuff for track or wide receiver stuff, I'm going to do that when I get back at 3 o'clock. He's going to be expecting that. We have to be intentional with our time. We have to be intentional with where we put all of our energy. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. So if it's stuck in junk, you're going to be in junk. If it's delighting in the Lord, I told you, anxiety and success, it's the same part of the brain. I forgot what part of the brain it is. It's just... And then these are the two easy ones, is you repeat it. So that's day in and day out. How am I doing that? I told you before, I'm in the business of kids. And my job is not to, yes, do I want them to win a state championship? Absolutely I do, for them. Because it's a memory they can't get back. But I feel the exact same way when I wake up after we won the 2022-2023 state championship in track. I woke up on that Sunday morning the same way I woke up the week after. It doesn't change. Because I'm in the kid business. Witnessing kids to serve the Lord and who he is and what his life is. Because, look, they're confused. Kids are confused. With all TikTok, Snapchat, all that stuff. Where their self-worth is, where they find who they are is so, this is a powerful platform that God has given me. So, how do we evaluate that? What is working? Those questions, right? So I told you we're going to maximize each day. We're going to maximize the people around us. My job is to serve God's kingdom for however many days. If it's 42 days and whatever, if it's 115 days, serve God's kingdom. Use me today to serve him. So, how do I do this? Daily questions to ask yourself. And if you want to write these down, you can. This is what I ask myself when I lay my head down at night. How did I do? Because I go back to evaluate it, right? You got to evaluate yourself to make sure that you're doing stuff right. So, am I at my best? Am I at my best? And if I'm not, where do I need to improve? Am I at my best? The next one, are my intentions right? Are my intentions right? If it's for me to sacrifice a kid who's got a bum ankle to go and run her out because he's one of our top receivers, what are my intentions? A big saying that I have is surrender the outcome. A lot of coaches don't like that word, surrender the outcome, because they like to think that they have control of every outcome of every game. Well, if every team, I think, prayed for a win, one team would be disappointed, one team would be excited, and then now all you're doing is making God a genie. That's all you're doing. So I ask myself, are my intentions right with how I lead our athletic department from a money standpoint? Are my intentions right with the people that I serve in our community? Are my intentions right with the kids that I coach every day? The people that I serve in our athletic department? Are my intentions right? Am I doing these for the right reasons? And then this is my favorite one. How can I get the most out of everybody I come encounter with today? How do I get the most out of everybody that I come in contact with? And only you can answer that. How can I do that? So for me, it's easy. I need to be on fire for the Lord every day my eyes open. Every day. And look, my wife always asks, she's like, why do you sit in the car? Like when you get home, and she always thinks I'm on my phone. That's just the time my kids are like jumping out of my truck. I'm getting all the bags in. It's like when you go to Kroger and your wife asks you to go to Kroger and she says, can you get all the bags out? And you're like carrying every bag because we're men and we want to make one trip, right? We want to prove that. I sit in there and I just reflect. I reflect on those questions. Was that my best today? Were my interests right? How are my intentions? And did I make everybody I came in contact with, did I maximize them? Did I max them out? Because that goes into serving. All that goes into going to serving. We're like, oh, that's being humble. And yeah. But we're put on this earth to serve. Because Jesus led the way we're supposed to lead. I'm going to leave you with these 3 words. Is love, serve, and care. We're supposed to love people. serve people, and care for people. That's it. When we love, when we serve, and when we care, a lot of those anxiety moments and anxious moments leave us. So HTHL, high truth, high love. Speak high truth and high love, out of high love to people. Maximize people each day. When you come in contact, when you maximize them to their full potential. For us, as Christians, it's to get them to know and love the Lord. And then the last thing is just to love, serve, and care for people. That's the easiest thing to do, guys. I will tell you this. There is one ring that I wear. You know, I told you ring in relationships, right? There's one ring that I wear, and it's this one. It's my grandfather's class ring from LSU. Huge LSU fan. Had a great athletic career year this year. Boom, go Tigers. But all the rings, and those young men back there, if y'all want to show them around, I got, I don't know, 9, 10, 11, 12. They were putting them on and looked like Tom Brady doing all that stuff. But none of those rings, all they are moments and memories for me of where I loved, served, and cared for kids. And they got an outcome that they wanted, and they enjoyed it. This one is my grandfather's, who I moved back home when he had Parkinson's disease, got into coaching. He passed away the day after my son was born. He was always like, Weaver boy, go and grab that Weaver boy. And we did. My son Luke was born January 3rd at 7:15 a.m. I got a call January 4th at 8:15 a.m. from my cousin saying that he had passed away. So my dad asked me, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? I was like, there's 2 things that I want out of his house. And he was the head of the Mississippi River Commission forever. And he had a figurine that had Boss on it. It has a big old gorilla, and that's what I wanted. And that's in my office today. And then I wanted his class ring. Because when I was a kid, I idolized him to no end. He was like, when they went to Salt Lake City, I went to Salt Lake City with them. I was the only one for 6 years as a grandchild, so I got spoiled. So when I talk about rings and relationships, my relationship with my grandfather was, if y'all ever seen Jerry Maguire, he was my Quan. He was my Quan. Anything I asked for, whether it was tires on my Jeep, he's like, you got to work for it. You got to work for it. So I remember putting in drains and all that in this house. He's like, I need you to get on the roof. Scared of heights. Got on the roof, though. But he was a person that led me in a positive manner. So the only ring that I cherish is this one. So I want to thank you for being an awesome audience. I want to thank you for asking me to come and speak. What an honor to come and just share a little bit of who I am with you and how we can make a difference in God's kingdom. And it's not simple. It's not easy. It's being rejected by everybody today that you come encounter with. If you look on any kind of news outlet, it is not the popular thing. But I promise you, I close my eyes at night knowing that we serve a mighty God. And he is in control because he's already won. He's already won. So as you leave today, find one person or one way to max out and to love, serve, and care. Thank you.
What a joy to have this guy up here who cussed at second base, and now he's crying out for Christ. And that's what God does with men. He changes them and uses them, and he puts them where he would have. So I would ask you just keep John in your prayers as he starts a new school year, as Justin does and others. And education is a tough field today, tougher than it's ever been. So pray for our educators and our coaches. Let's close with a word of prayer for several people. Number one, in our fellowship, Shirley Todd had surgery yesterday, and Lynn Pippin is having knee surgery today. So we pray that they have strong recoveries. And again, guys, you're invited to go with us this Thursday over to Smithdale. We'll go over to the shop. We'll go out to eat. We'll come home. And is there someone you'd like to mention?
When is Jimmy having his
Who?
Jimmy Jackson? Next week.
Okay, I was not aware of that. Okay. All right. We want to remember our pastor search committee here and our sister churches in the county. And so as we come back tomorrow night here in our fellowship and ask God's blessings on not only our church, but the other churches, Bible-believing churches here in our county. Anything else before we go? All right. What a joy to be here today. And Herschel, would you lead us in a closing prayer, please?
Father God, we humbly bow before you today, Father. We pray that you will forgive us where we failed you and hear our prayers, Lord. Father, we thank you for this man that he's done to share his word with us, Father. Lord, blessed he has been to us today. And I know all the kids and people that's come in contact with him, Father. We pray for him and us as we leave today, hearing the words that we heard, that they will apply to our hearts. We will do what example he has set for us. Father, forgive you, thank you for this day, and every person in the families here that represent, Lord, in Christ's name.
Amen.
Guys, repeat after me. Christ first.
Christ first.
Christ only.
Christ only.
Christ always.
Christ always.
Have a good afternoon.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, sir. Thank you.